Hello and welcome to the fourth Elite Prospects 2025 NHL Draft Ranking. It's April. This one's coming a little bit later than we anticipated, but that means we've had extra time to watch a bunch of players and solidify, let's say, some of our stronger takes or deny some of our stronger takes. But we have one already locked in, and that is a certain Matthew Schaefer at number one overall. So, Cam Robinson, take it away.
So this is David from the editing room. Before we start the meeting, I have to say that we lost a good part of the recording of this one. What you're going to hear is what I could say from our discussion.
Love him on the ice, love him off the ice. He's just a sweetheart. But on the ice, so young, so fluid, takes command of the game. I know we didn't see it as a draft -1 in the OHL so much. And then it started to show out last year at the U18s, carried over to the Linka, and then obviously, a shortened season. But what we saw him do in that time span, even in this game and a quarter at the World Juniors, was just he's a difference maker, and he's so poised with the puck. I love that the best players are always constantly looking for him on the ice to work give and goes and see what he's going to do. He can jump up into the play. I think his rush defense was improved this year. I think he's a serious skater and has like legitimate top pairing upside. Like he could be a number one, but he has serious top pairing upside. Maybe not someone who transforms your blue line for a decade plus, but someone who you can like put a stamp on that this guy's going to be able to play a ton of minutes for us, put up points, develop into hopefully someone who can stop at a nice level as well at the NHL. But it's really going to be his play creation, his transition, his ability to jump in and be that third person, or the fourth person joining the rush or leading it himself. I love his IQ. Like I said, there's a lot of things I like about this player. Now, obviously, it's like we have him locked in at number one. I think a lot of people do, a lot of teams do, but he hasn't played in forever. And so we were hoping that we get another look at him here, maybe in round 2 against London. And if not, I'm still trying to find out if the U18s is a possibility if they get bounced quickly too. So we hope we can get a little more look at him. But if we haven't, I think that the body of work so far is enough to make him a very viable and a worthy first overall pick.
All right, so that's number one. Number two, I think this one is also relatively locked in. It's Michael Misa. I think that is a bit of a departure from our last board where Misa was number 3. So Lauren, why don't you tell us about Mike?
Sure. I mean, what can you say after what he did this season? He led the OHL in scoring as a draft eligible, most points in a draft eligible season since Patrick Kane over a decade ago. Just a commanding top line presence, number one center, drives play. And you saw he wasn't completely healthy in the first round against Erie, and obviously Saginaw didn't stand a chance with like they were battling injuries and depth in the lineup. And obviously they went out a little bit earlier than we would have liked to see him play a little bit more. And so hopefully if he's healthy enough to go for the U18s, that'll provide us another opportunity to really see what he can do in like a best on best situation. But the body of work this season speaks for itself. He's improved his dynamism. He's a super well-rounded player. There's no glaring weaknesses to his game. And so this is really like if teams really like his profile, like I could see him going first overall, depending on who ends up winning the draft lottery. But this is a no-brainer to me for second in our ranking.
And so now we have a unanimous number 3 as well, which is a particularly fun narrative given where we started at this year having no idea how we wanted to handle the top 5. And that would be Porter Martone. So Daniel, why don't you tell us about playmaking extraordinaire Porter Martone?
Yeah, he's huge at 6'3". He's a right-hand shot. His playmaking is extremely slick. Lots of skill, slips, hooks, layers. I think his pace has gotten a lot better over the season compared to just at the start. I just watched a game where he was just all over the place, pushing a lot of pressure, creating hard skill advantages and that type of thing. I just think that he's a huge player who layers deception, who has plus tools. It's pretty obvious that he should be in this spot just because of those reasons. His translation to the NHL is probably going to be easier. He's going to get a million opportunities to do so. And he's likely going to be a top line creator that every team is kind of looking for because of that size and skill profile.
Okay, that's our top 3. But now the debate begins, and we kind of have three players in the mix this time instead of four. They are James Hagens, of course, Roger McQueen, who returned, was great after an initial slow start and then got injured again, and Jackson Smith, who went on a huge goal scoring tear late in the season as the percentages normalized for him.
Hagens, like it's just a lot of connection plays, and a lot of the time he wasn't the guy driving the line. We waited all season for it to happen, and it just didn't. He's still very slick. He's a great skater. He's a tricky playmaker. He's also really good off puck, but in terms of like a volume approach of creating advantage after advantage and taking over, it just never happened. Whereas you have, Roger McQueen, who is 6'5", who is a dynamic handler at times, who's probably a bigger play driver at the WHL level. So I kind of just see McQueen over Hagens right now. But I do recognize like there's inherent risk because he didn't play very much, and injury on top of injury this year.
I think that also, I think that also, like, if we reverse their roles too, right? So yes, Hagens wasn't driving play at BC this year, playing Division 1 or playing at the World Juniors as an underager, versus McQueen, who, really tore it up against some weaker clubs, but didn't as much against some of the better WHL clubs too. I totally agree with the size and the runway for potential with McQueen. And like, you can make an argument that he could be number one in this draft on pure upside on what he could become. But I do think that, and I've been guilty of it all season too, of being critical of Hagens for not driving play when he's surrounded by play drivers too. So if you put him in a situation where he wasn't surrounded by play drivers, I think he would have been driving play more. And I think we see that next year when he hopefully returns to Boston College and probably will be their number one player, and everything will run through him. And so it'll be really interesting to see their post-draft seasons and how they each pop, and whether, that all that pedigree and all those opportunities that Hagens has in his back pocket on international stages, on big stages, how that formulates in the coming years versus McQueen, who's lost like half a year of development, a little older they're both old for the draft class. But yeah, it's right now, I think the safe spot is Hagens, but pure upside, it's going to be McQueen, and he's going to be one to watch on draft day, because it's like, is the team going to risk it at this spot on him, or are they going to take the safe choice and let him slip to 6, 7, 8 or something?
Here's what I would like to add about Hagens is we know he's playing against 23-year-olds. We know that I think people have been a little picky about him, and I think, Cam, you did a good job detailing that. He did bring his team back in the game that they lost in Hockey East, but he did score the lone goal, and he was trying to bring his team back. He did score the game-winning goal against Bentley, against a really good goalie, one of the better goalies in college hockey that year for save percentage this year. So I think we have to remember those things too, because when you are a freshman, remember what happened when Lane Hudson, he came back the next year, you see him in World Junior Camp, and all of a sudden he has 15 pounds of muscle.
I think there's some concerns with Hagens' hockey sense in terms of if it's truly upper echelon. Like if you watch his D-1 tape, he was a play driver. He was dynamic. He stacked a lot of advantages. And I agree with he's playing on a line with Leonard and Perreault a lot of the time, and that's just kind of ridiculous. Still, like there's weird decisions in his game where he, like pass off plays where he has a clear shot and stuff like that creates some pause. My thing with McQueen over Hagens is like you basically can't acquire players like Roger McQueen in free agency or via trade without emptying your cupboards essentially. So that's kind of just where I stand with that.
Yeah, and I think with McQueen, it's really going to come down to what was the final injury. What was the injury that knocked him out of the playoffs? If it's just something minor that you just can't play with, it's probably not going to affect his draft stock that much. But if it's another moderate to large injury, it's going to impact what happens to him on draft day. So it's a tricky situation. So I say for now we probably just keep that order as we had it, Hagens, McQueen, and then wait until we get some official word on how exactly that's looking before we make the decision to drop McQueen or raise McQueen or whatever, right? Because you watch him in that Moose Jaw home and home, or the Regina home and home after he kind of gets his feet back under him. And he looks like a number one overall challenger. So it's just a matter of, will we get to see it? And of course, he's had a lengthy injury history before. He missed 6 weeks last year as well. So a lot of uncertainty, but in terms of upside, he very well could be the best guy available in this entire draft. And then that locks in Jackson Smith at number 6, who has largely played the same game the entire season with Tri-City, and now he's just getting rewarded for it. He's been dynamic, he's been great defensively, he's quite physical. We saw him in different levels of play show more of a defensive shutdown side, and then in Tri-City, he's more of the dynamic play-creating defenseman. But I mean, when you look at guys like that, it can be, oh, what will they be in the NHL? But it can also be they could become anything. Like he could become a number one, he could become a shutdown middle pair guy. The range of outcomes for him is wide, but almost all of them suggest a very impactful NHL defenseman. So that's our top 6. So now we have kind of a very wide open tier. We have Bear, we have Eklund, we have Desnoyers, we have Jake O'Brien, Lynden Lakovic, Anton Frondell. How do we want to sort this? Do we still want to be aggressive on Bear and Eklund?
I think with Bear really quickly is that with some of these injuries, some of these guys had like Lindstrom last year. We're like, yeah, it's a back injury. We're told it wasn't a disc. It wasn't going to be too bad. It's always like, you never know. With this one, lacerated Achilles, it's like, we know this is 6 months anyways, right? Like this, and it could be 10, 12. Like we're really, hopefully it's not. I was told it wasn't like a full laceration, like through cut her all the way through, but that is definitely going to impact his development, unfortunately, right? And that injury is unfortunately one of the ones that reoccurs. So for something like this, it's like, personally for me, I agree. I think that's where Carter Bear on skill alone in the season he's done, he should be right there. But now I had to put that into the equation and be like, maybe I bump him down a few spots just because looking at from that lens of how is that going to now, what's he going to look like in 3 years now compared to these guys right around him?
I think I
All right,
prefer Eklund at this stage, personally. Just, obviously the injury is a factor, but also just you look at the pure play driving factor, the ability to I think the upper echelon skill, like the highs are higher for me with Eklund, even though I love what Bear brings to the game. I think there's still a gap in skill. You're losing a couple inches with Eklund, but he makes up for it with a fight. So the more I've watched of Eklund, the less concerns I've had. So I'm optimistic.
All right, let's bring in Jimmy to talk about Eklund. So I think there's enough votes to probably change this up and go Eklund over Bear. And that seems to be the general feel in the room overall, so that's what we'll do. But is there anyone else that we want to consider over Carter Bear?
Is this where I get to talk about Jake O'Brien?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. I personally have Jake O'Brien above these guys at this point. Jake O'Brien, simply put, is probably the most creative playmaker in this whole draft class. And I think that's worth a good positioning in our rankings. I do agree. He still has some flaws in his game, but the skating has improved. I think his scoring ability has improved also compared to last season. But in terms of pure playmaking, his passes are very precise. He's highly creative, maybe sometimes too much, but I like the upside. He has also still some room to grow, to add some strength. That's going to help him a lot as well. And as he continues to improve his skating and scoring ability, I think he has the potential to become a very good top 6 center in the NHL.
I agree. I think on upside alone, and with the runway for him to add strength and continue to hone that creativity and figure out when to use it, when not to use it, and to learn to drive a little bit more at 5-on-5 versus relying on the power play so much. I've said it before, is that he reminds me a little bit of Elias Pettersson did in his draft year, where there was some warts there to his game, but everybody could see the obvious skill. He slid to 5 or whatever. I don't think that maybe he has quite that level of skill to his game, but he reminds me of that. And maybe he's not going to be one of these ones that puts on 30 pounds really easily. He might struggle to gain that weight and put that on long term, but as it incrementally grows, I do agree that I think that there's a potential here for like a really impactful play creator at the NHL level, possibly even a first liner.
Yeah, in terms of upside. But also, one thing is that he's pretty young compared to the other guys in that same range. He's born in mid-June, if I recall correctly. All of the other guys we've talked about in a similar range are mostly late. So late players. So I think there's still some runway, like you said, and I like the progression. There are some guys that I'm not convinced about the progression this year that I wanted to see more, but O'Brien has really impressed me in terms of progression.
Uh, like for O'Brien, I think he'll have to go through like, a major fundamental change to how he plays. Like
Yeah.
he's a very junior like creator, over reliance on holding the pucks for very long time. Like the amount of time he's on puck is just not going to be normal in a pro environment. He over leverages delays to create space. And I think like for every 5 plays, 3 of them are junior level creation, and 2 of them are bad decisions, right? And we don't really harp on decision making all that much because we've learned that it's not a projectable. It doesn't really factor into translation. But when you look at just the way he plays, like it's going to be a major shift in how he goes about playing hockey. And then, he has the physical runway and everything, but I just think there's other options that have similar upside, like Desnoyers and Lakovic, who probably should be ahead of him at this time.
But I mean, like Desnoyers, if we're talking about like leveraging delays, right? Like he does the same thing in the queue too, right? Where he's using his brain and his ability to slow the game down to impact it, right? Like he's far from like a driver too. But I think on like pure upside and skill, you'd have to give it to O'Brien. Desnoyers, safer, super smart. I really appreciate his mind, and I think that that's going to get him far, but maybe not as far as it could. So if we're talking safety versus ceiling, then yeah, I could get on board with that too.
I don't know. I mean, the thing is, Desnoyers has other elements, right? Like he's a high-end defensive player. He's a really good forechecker. He's able to impact the game in all 3 zones, and his
And that's
I
the
feel like
safe.
yeah, I know, but
Yeah,
that's the
yeah.
thing. Like with O'Brien, like the one concern is what Daniel brought up. Like there's gonna need to be an upheaval of the way he approaches the game in order to see him have some NHL success. My other concern with Jake O'Brien is I want to see another dimension. Like it's one thing to have to rework your playmaking game, which is already your strength, but I want to see something else. I kept looking for it, and I don't know. Like the defensive skill is decent, the positioning is decent, but it's not to a level where he can leverage it into something more. I don't see a lot of cohesiveness between his playmaking and his shooting and handling, for example. Like the obviously the playmaking skill and the pure creativity and vision he has is just it's a really alluring aspect. But I every time I've watched O'Brien, I just came out with more questions than answers. Whereas Desnoyers, it's just I don't know, it's answer after answer. You know what he's going to bring to you. You know what he's going to bring to the game. I just yes, the skill level's lower, but with Desnoyers, it's not just about safety, it's about versatility and adaptability. And that's one thing I've seen from Desnoyers that I'm not, at least in limited viewings. I mean, I'm sure Lauren can speak more on this, but in my limited viewings, I haven't seen as much adaptability and versatility from O'Brien. You kind of,
Yeah.
yeah,
Desnoyers has a much more hard skill game at this point, like tipping pucks in front of the net. He's a better
For sure.
shooter, rolling with contact, and so on. Of course, the big question with O'Brien is can he add those things? He does them in flashes. He's also very light. He's a very wiry guy, and so you would anticipate that he'll be able to make some improvement in that. And we've talked a lot about comparisons for him. And well, it's true there are some lower end outcomes for O'Brien. There are also some higher end outcomes. And so wherever we end up ranking him is not an indictment on the potential. It's more about the certainty versus the other guys. Lakovic actually outscored him at 5-on-5 this season, while being in a significantly worse situation. And so it makes you wonder a little bit about O'Brien's play driving ability and his ability to achieve that next level and particularly the sustainability of his production, right? Like, I don't know, it's just a really tough one because we're talking about a player again, kind of like McQueen, who could very well end up being one of the 3 best players in this draft class, but there's also a chance that he's Cody Glass. So figuring out exactly how to weigh those outcomes is this is a problem that we're gonna this is gonna go right up to the publication of the draft guide.
I would say he's not glass because, well, he plays on a penalty kill. He's pretty good at it, but he has escapability, and that is something that I think when you get to the next level, that helps guys like that.
Like I said, I have O'Brien really high, but yeah, there's some risk with him that you don't have with a guy like Caleb Desnoyers.
So do we want to go Lakovic behind Jake O'Brien, then give the additional runway in terms of physical development and so on, the edge? Is that something we're all cool with?
I like Lakovic more, but there's a lot of argument for O'Brien. So
The premier position too.
Okay, and then so now we have to decide what to do with Anton Frondell. So we're going to turn it over to Jimmy yet again to break down his playoffs and how he's performed late in the season.
Yeah, our latest ranking, we had him, I think, 18, and then he just after we ranked him, he had like 9 games where he put up like 2 points per game in Allsvenskan, which was pretty crazy. So after all the injuries, he started to really, show his potential, and he played really, really well. Then start of the playoffs, coach didn't trust him as much, so he hasn't produced as much in the nearest the same level as before. But as a player, I think he's mostly very, very skilled. You see, every puck touch he has is clean. His shot is clean. His passes are clean. When he wins the puck, he wins it clean. He play makes what he sees. He doesn't really maybe open up ice and make plays that wow, how did he see that or that? So, and it's the issue with his skating. He isn't a strong player in transition. He reads and reacts. He doesn't. He skates much more now than early in the season, but he's a strong skater. Then in the physical side, he's a truck. He's a big kid for his age. He hits people in Allsvenskan. He hits them hard too. So I don't know. For me, this player I wouldn't draft him in the top 5 as he has been ranked in some instances, because I don't feel he's certain enough to become that first line or that star that you want so early. But this kid is going to play in the NHL. He is so skilled. I love to watch him play. He does so many things, but probably we will end up maybe as a second line center. So I think around, I don't know. For me, I think I don't think you do a bad job if you draft Frondell 8th or 9th, or it depends on the competition. So I don't know. We're around 10 now, so I think that's a good 12 range for him. He plays mostly wing in Allsvenskan now, but I think he's naturally, I think he's a center. So, but he could play wing. So he's a pretty common in Sweden that you don't get to play center run away when you get up in the senior. So, but when you see him in junior, I think if he gets to play now in the U18s, I think you'll see him as a center there. So,
Jimmy, could you talk about his wrist shot? Because I think he may have one of the best, if not the best, in the draft. The impact of it, like the hardness of it.
Yeah. I mean, his one-timers are really good too. I think it's really strange that Djurgården isn't lets him play so little on the power play now. I think they trust the veterans now in the playoffs. So I think that's a bummer for me to want to see. But he has a really hard wrist shot. He has a really hard slap shot. So and he hits it clean and it's precise too. So he will be a good goal scorer.
And of all the players we were talking about, like the centers, how they have to adjust, Brian and Desnoyers, he's the one who will have to adjust least amount to the NHL game, playing pro hockey already and playing a very north-south game. Now, and I say that because if he transitions the way that he plays already now, he will be an NHLer, but it'll be a bottom 6 NHLer. So if he wants to make good on being a top 10 pick or a top 12 pick, then yeah, he's going to have to add that dynamic element to his game that is lacking, and it is often the most difficult thing to add to a game. So give me a player that I need to work on and correct their junior habits into pro habits or add strength, versus a player who has pro habits and already has pro strength but is lacking those dynamic elements. And so that's where I think this is a great spot for him right now. And basically, like, every time I watch him play, outside of a handful of those games, Jimmy, where he really popped, where you look at him, you're like, that's a mid first rounder right there. That's a good player who's going to be a good NHLer, but really never wows me outside of like some of the physical abilities where he like kills a guy, where he like just runs somebody over, and you're like, damn, this kid is this age and he's already hammering guys like that. Like, that stuff gets, is kind of lifts the eyebrows. But and it's I wish Mitch was here, because I'd love to hear his take on how high he is on him.
Yeah, and I think the difference when I watch Djurgården now, when Eklund and Frondell isn't scoring, you see Eklund all the time. But when Frondell isn't scoring, he disappears in games. So I think that's a big difference between those two.
And it's so interesting we're having this conversation now, because the next guy on the list is Justin Carbonneau, who's basically the complete opposite, right? He's super fun, super enjoyable, mechanically pretty much perfect across the board, dynamic. Like, he's one of the most dynamic players in this draft class. But he's lacking a lot of the pro decision-making habits and overall kind of mindset in order to make the NHL. So when you have that comparable, I think it's really interesting, because on pure talent alone, on pure dynamism, on pure mechanical refinement, Carbonneau is insane. Like, there's so many plays he's made this season in the queue that no one else can do. Well, very few prospects in this draft class can do, at least. But then you see him drag his feet, you see him jump the zone, a lot of giveaways, lots of stuff like that. The thing is, he gets the puck 80,000 times a game, but it's a result of the way he plays, the way he commands the ice. He wants to be the guy every single shift. He's commanding the puck every single time he's on the ice. And that can lead to some decent development runway. But what Carbonneau's doing with those puck touches is pretty much relatively the same thing on every play. He drives inside at all costs, gets off the wall with hard crossovers, takes one-timers. I've really liked the progression in his soft skill and his small area game, especially when it comes to finding soft ice in the offensive zone. But outside of that, I have a lot of questions with Carbonneau, but I would still rank him in this range. I think he's the next guy off the board after Frondell, in my opinion.
I don't think we should underrate Frondell's flashes, like dynamic flashes either. They're it's hard to find them sometimes, but when he does pop like a handle out or something like that, it's pretty wild. He's also a tank. Like, he's going to translate well around the boards. He's like, I think Jimmy touched on it. With Justin Carbonneau, like, he's dynamic. He wants to create an advantage off of every touch. He's fast. Like, there's just a lot to like. When he gets inefficient, he can sway very, very inefficient, and it can be frustrating. But when he starts connecting, his playmaking is very underrated, I think, too. He's an insane layer. Just insane layers. A lot of skill, slips, hooks. So I think it's Frondell here. Just because of certainty, and then but there's issues with Frondell's transition game. I think Lassie has some data tracked on that, but
Yeah, the one thing I'd add for Carbonneau as well is that he does create a ton off every puck touch, but like, I watched his entire series against Sherbrooke. The moment he faced a decent defensive line, the moment he faced like a really strong team that was able to hone in on him, shut him down, like put their focus on him, because he is the focal point of that offense. The moment he faced that in a competitive environment that's not playing Val d'Or 10 times a year, all of a sudden you saw him disappear and get frustrated and make bad decisions. Like, Carbonneau, that's one thing. He's a player who gets frustrated really quickly, especially when he's faced with like higher end. When he's being man marked to full end, like two guys on him at all times. Those are the moments where I was like, yeah, no, there's a gap between him and Frondell. So I fully agree. It's Frondell and then Carbonneau next up here.
So now we need to deal with kind of the the rest of our A's, so basically down to like 24, 25 territory, I feel like all these players are interchangeable to some degree. There's a lot of different rankings that we all have. And so what we have on the sheet here is basically how it all comes out. And as you can see, it is very messy even still. There's not much difference separating these players. Before they all had clean numbers. Now, not so much. So I think Mrtka at 14 is probably the most even keel take here. You get the certainty he's going to play. He's probably going to be pretty effective, and you also get the upside. If he continues to improve his skating, he can become more dynamic with the puck. So that seems like a pretty straightforward take. You're getting a number 4 minimum, and then you also get someone who could pierce higher into the lineup with a little bit of development. But now it becomes the question of how do we want to handle the very difficult tier of, say, Logan Hensler, Cameron Schmidt, Braeden Cootes, Kashawn Aitcheson, Brady Martin. There are a lot of names in here. And so why don't we start talking about Logan Hensler? Who wants to talk about Hensler?
I can. I really like what I've seen here in the back half with Hensler. It's been a very, very different player to watch compared to the early season viewings. He's far more confident. The mobility has been making really big differences on both ends of the ice, and the offensive flashes have actually been like pretty consistent on a Wisconsin team that has about 3 forwards who can score. I believe like they have like only 3 players who have more than 15 points this season. It's been rough in terms of offense throughout the lineup, and Hensler's 6th in team scoring with 12 points, but really, really like the rush defending, the mobility, matching footwork, and the retrieval game has also just taken really, really big strides this season. And he's been a lot closer to the player that we saw all the hype for in his like D-1, D-2 campaigns than the early season draft year viewings here. But I've also really liked what I've seen from Aitcheson and the other defensemen in this range. So it's very tight, but I've very much liked Hensler and think that he's a top 20 candidate for sure.
I mean, Hensler's a righty, and he is a plug and play kind of guy too. He's played different roles on different teams. That's the good thing.
But yeah, I agree. Mrtka and Hensler are probably the 2 players that are the easiest to project at an NHL level if we compare them with the other players on the board like Schmidt, Reed, Kindle, and all of these guys. So yeah, that's what I would go with. And Brady Martin would be another guy, I think, in that range that would be easy to project. I don't know if you guys agree with that.
We're talking about defensemen too. I'd just like to put Aitcheson ahead for his like chaos factor too, right? Where we're talking about Mrtka and Hensler, and they're somewhat lower pace guys that play. I mean, Mrtka does it because he plays 40 minutes a night, but I mean, with Aitcheson, like the skill level might not be as high, but he is going to give you like 130 every time he's on the ice. He's going to hit. He's going to jump into the play. He can score goals. He doesn't have like that creativity, but I do like. I just think he's going to will himself into being like a second pair guy that like fans are going to love. The team is going to love. He's going to be out there killing penalties, maybe play second power play. I know I keep saying it, but like to me, he just looks like Kevin Bieksa 2.0. Like he's just going to take on everybody and do it with a big smile on his face too. And that energy that he brings is, I don't think should be overlooked.
Can't forget about Cootes either, though.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I was going to say, if we're talking about Brady Martin, we should be talking about faster
Cootes.
Brady Martin.
he's a wet blanket on the forecheck. Like, it is insane. I had a live game where he legitimately broke up 3 or 4 breakouts in a row and then stole the puck down low and then started a whole cycle. Like he's a madman. He's not in a great situation. He doesn't have a ton of support at all, which has affected a lot of production and like just connections on like give and go plays and everything like that. But he's insane. Like,
yeah, I agree. I really like Braeden Cootes as well. I think he's one of the most underrated players this year. I like the motor. I like even the playmaking ability has been high end in some flashes. So yeah, I do support Braeden Cootes there.
Okay, and then Brady Martin, I think, is the easy follow up to that one. He's a little bit lower pace. He hits people a lot harder. The high end skill shows more, but the pace is a little bit lower, and so you get similar upside, similar certainty. So you could have those two either way and be okay with it. So I think now we do have to talk about the other Cameron Reed, and Ben Kindle, Kashawn Aitcheson. Do we want to go Aitcheson here as the as at 19 as the the high probability NHL player, high probability uh guy who could probably take a next step and surprise you, given the amount of offense that he does have in spurts, particularly at 4-on-4 and 3-on-3. Blake Fiddler, the 6'4" shutdown defenseman who can really skate, developing the rest of his game still. Do we want Kindle, the dynamic, smaller forward who's maybe not the cleanest skater? But he's a very exciting talent, a high-end playmaker, and he's very good at playing off like-minded players as well. He's a good swing to become at least a middle six scorer. And then Cameron Reed, a smaller defenseman who's a dynamic skater with shutdown defensive potential, and on top of that, he has the dynamic puck moving skills. So, who do we want to take here?
So if you've made it this far in the meeting, you probably realize that I'm not talking at all. This is David St. Louis, by the way. The reason is because this is our backup recording that I'm editing. And while I was the backup recording, I was recording everyone else, but not my own microphone. So that's my mistake. It's the bigger issue for the next few players because I talked a lot for them and there are many holes in our discussion. So what I plan to do is that over the next few days or next week, I'm going to record a podcast where I talk about our top 32 and give my thoughts on these prospects as a supplement or add-on to this meeting. So this is going to help cover some of the players who are missing.
All right. So Shane Vansaghi or Joshua Ravensbergen? Really, how much do we want to value a goaltender, I guess, is the core question here, Daniel.
Ravensbergen didn't have a great second half of the year. A lot of just issues with rebounds and stuff. He cleaned it up a bit, but a lot of just clean shots, getting beat by clean shots with like no screens and a lot of backbreaking momentum goals. Still, he's a 6'5", toolsy goalie, like you said. I think there's starter upside. It's just about, he's just really early on in his development curve. He's a little behind because of how he started, but I think his development curve is kind of like skyrocketing right now. So I think we kind of have to go Ravensbergen there. But Vansaghi is a absolute monster. He's a tank. He's one of the best space creators in the draft. I think I said that the last 3 meetings. So, and he's dynamic in moments.
Ahead of Malcolm Spence?
Yes. He's just a little more special, I think. Whereas Spence is, I don't know. Yeah, you can go.
No, it's okay.
Do it, Lauren.
No, it's just like he's the same player he was at the start of the year, right? Like that really solid 200-foot play drive, like pushing pace of play, defensively responsible winger, physical, strips from behind, but how high is the offensive upside? Like he's a really high probability to play, but he's probably going to be better suited to complement more skilled guys in maybe a top 6 or middle 6 role, as opposed to maybe driving a line on his own.
And if we're talking about special qualities, I think that the next player on the board in my eyes would be Vaclav Nestrasil. Very, very physical as well player, but there's so much skill. He's just been a heat-seeking missile in the most recent games I'm watching. He's just constantly pestering opponents. He never stops working. He has that work rate under him, but the puck skills are really, really dynamic. He's creative in using everything in his surroundings to help him, whether it's the back of the net, the boards, likes to bounce the puck off of those and then go and retrieve it, and constantly winning 50-50 battles, and has been far more impressive in my Muskegon Lumberjacks viewings than Ivan Ryabkin has been. And he's a player that in the USHL this season definitely, I think, has the most special qualities in a projectable format in this draft class. And I know that I also have some more popular support here, as both Daniel and Simon are also quite big fans of this player.
The monster. Like he's 6'5". Like you said, he's dynamic. I think you should probably talk about Kevan too eventually here, because I'd probably take him over Spence as well. But yeah, he's amazing.
Kevin's all skill and pace, just constantly pushing the pace, and he's just gotten more and more comfortable as the years gone on here. Just the playmaking quality. He's trying to do a bit of everything in Des Moines because he doesn't have the most support there, and I think that Arizona State University is going to be a really good landing spot for him as well. We've seen how Cullen Potter has developed there this season. I think there are definitely some similarities between those two profiles, and yeah, he's a player I've liked a lot, but I'd probably take Will Moore a little bit ahead. But it's a very tight range in the USHL. You have like no one top 20 and then like everyone in that like 25 to 40 range.
Yeah, I would take more a little ahead too. I agree with you, Sebastian. Also, Kevan had a broken wrist to start the season, so he had to overcome that.
That makes sense because he looks way more dynamic right now, especially handling. So, um, yeah, like I think a lot of us came together and watched a lot of Will Moore, and I seen it earlier in the season, but his hard skill game has taken another step. He's just light right now, right? Like, but he's like dislodging pucks on the forecheck. He's making tricky plays from below the goal line. He's having higher pace moments. I think he has everything for a second C projection on the higher end. Um, I think it's just down to like, uh, do you like the dynamic play of Kevan more than that? I don't know. I think I'd probably take Kevan before, but I understand the argument because Moore is a more valuable position. I do see him as a center.
Well,
For sure.
Like even
guys are
Potter
gonna
too, right?
Potter. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I think he's going to be a player over like if you want to put betting odds on him versus Nestrasil, I obviously the upside there, but like as far as projects, like if you're taking a snapshot of them today, one is more translatable at the moment for
I'd
sure,
take
I
the
think.
6'5" project
So would
over
I if I'm
Potter.
drafting a project, I'll take this big. I'm just talking
Yeah.
about
No, but Cam's right in a way that Potter, if you talk to him, ridiculously smart, and then you see him on the ice, very, very smart. And he took a chance, like going there as it's
it worked
paid off
out.
for him. It
Yeah.
worked out.
Potter is another guy that's going to have to fundamentally change the way he plays too, though, right? Like it's all drop passes and transition. Like and there's size concerns too, right? So
Yeah,
I don't know.
I
Like
think if we're talking about guys who are gonna play, Zonnon's gonna play, in my opinion. I don't see a lot of considerable hurdles. He plays in all situations for Hawaii. Really high end playmaking flashes. We're talking like seventh grade, like playmaking flashes. Defensively responsible, physical. His skating doesn't hold him back nearly as much, and I think it's even improved from a 4 to a 4.5, maybe in 5th grade as the season's gone on. I've gotten more confident with his ability to carry speed through transitions, crossovers, and changes of direction. So if we're talking about guys who are gonna play, Bill Zonnon has to be in the conversation.
he's pretty
My big no.
mechanically messed up, but
Yeah.
there's a lot
You
of
took the
there's a
words.
lot of output to his skating,
Yeah.
right? And then I just think his playmaking is like ridiculous. Like
Yeah, it's insane.
his vision, I mean, like it's just like the stuff he sees is pretty wild.
Yeah.
I probably would still have, a Kevan or a Moore over him, but it's definitely his range.
Zonna's concerned me just a little bit, just like handling pressure, because I do agree that his playmaking is really, really strong. But as soon as he's pressured quickly, I've seen him cough up the puck a ton too.
Well, just handling period is a problem for him. Like
Yeah.
he's not, again, he's mechanically flawed, but outworks everyone, will battle his way to the NHL. Like I don't see a scenario where Bill Zonnon doesn't play in the NHL. Like
Yeah, he'll be a bottom sixer. Yeah.
yeah. I think especially if he can expand on that playmaking, improve his handling, use it as like a connective tool with his playmaking skill, you're probably talking about a decent middle sixer down the line. But the floor is bottom six for me.
Wong might be a little more interesting just because I truly believe his skating is like at a near elite level. Like it's just a guy that's a little bit behind the curve developmentally because of the prep school start. But Lauren could probably talk about Wong a little bit more.
Yeah, I thought in the playoffs he really started to show that he had kind of settled in and he wasn't trying too many high risk plays. He was kind of just being asked to play as steady a role as possible on the third pair for Oshawa. Of course, there were still moments of, as soon as he tried to increase his pace in transition, like he would fumble pucks and leave them behind. That's just gonna come with time. I feel like when he is patient and he kind of takes the opportunity to slow things down for himself, he's much more refined, less chaotic. Really just a player who I hope spends another year in the OHL before going off to college. Because I think we need to see what he looks like in a full season at this level. But the upside, again, like Daniel said, is just so huge. The skating ability is incredible, so naturally gifted and agile for a player that is that tall. So the upside could be potentially huge here. And it's just a matter of whether he can continue to figure it out, depending on how long Oshawa lasts in the playoffs this year and where he ends up next year. Yeah, it's probably still Epperson's range. There were 3 players in the first round for Saginaw who didn't have bad playoffs in that round, and he was one of them. He was basically the only player going on the top line, trying to create, imposing his will physically, battling down low. I don't think he's done anything to suggest dropping him. He's just continued to play really steadily. Especially now that he's not in and out of the lineup with injury or suspension. He was really good at the end. So I see no reason to kind of move him depending on how other players have performed in a similar stretch.
Sebastian is about to talk about Ryker Lee.
I really like him. I mean, in terms of like the puck skill combination, he's easily the most skilled player in this USHL draft class. The handling, the shooting, the passing ability are all quite high end. His ability to make plays in tight quarters is really impressive. And even though he's like a 3 or 3.5 grade skater, it's like probably the ugliest stride I've watched so far this season in my region. He's intelligent enough that he's just constantly in good positions and anticipates the play very well. So he's been playing really well against like the grain in the USHL, kind of the middle of the ice. He's a danger to score from range, and he doesn't need much space or time to get a really, really dangerous shot off either. Like I saw a play where he only got like a half wind up off like on his release because like his stick hit the skate of an opponent, and even with just like the stick traveling like a foot or less than a foot, it was a really, really hard shot from like just after crossing the blue line. He's just really mechanically gifted, and the creativity is second to none in the USHL this season. So the top 6 upside, I think, is most certainly there. He could be a power play quarterback in the NHL, big time goal scorer, but also the handling and the playmaking should probably at least match the scoring ability as he progresses to professional hockey. So the upside is really big, but there's definitely a chance he tops out as an AHL scorer at the max. So there's very clear risk associated with this player, but when you're selecting in this range of the draft, especially in a year like this one, how many players are actually still available at this spot who have like very, very clear top 6 potential?
He was 5'3" at 15 years old, and he's been growing 2 inches a year since. And he told me he's still growing.
That explains the skating.
Now.
Yeah.
Yes. And he does lose his form when he gets tired. He told me that too.
He does, yeah.
Over Ryabkin, violent Ryabkin.
Oh yeah, easy.
I would.
Yeah.
So this was a shorter edition of our meeting with the clips I could save from our recording. In the next few days, I'll release my own thoughts on our ranking and debates on the channel, so be on the lookout for that.